everyone, this is Lori with Changing My Life, and this is part of the Estates series, and this episode is called Changing the Taboo. So I need to start off with a few caveats. First, this is my opinion, and only my opinion. I am not a doctor, nor an attorney, nor am I an expert. This is based on my experiences and what I have witnessed. This is meant to be food for thought, and I am hoping to help at least one of you have a better experience than I and my family have had through this very difficult time. Okay, so in my opinion, we need to break the taboo of talking about our sunset years, months, weeks, or days. We need to realize that talking about this time of our lives doesn't make it happen any faster. Unfortunately, we have zero idea when our final days are going to be here, so it really does make sense to talk about this even as a young person. So even if you're 18 or 80, I urge you to think about and even tell your family or people who may be forced to make decisions on your behalf what you want. One of the best ways to do this is to have a living will. I know at 18 you're thinking I don't need one, but I would beg to differ. At 18 you're an adult and you have transitioned to the position where you have choices in how you and or your body is respected. Everyone, regardless of age, should have a living will, also known as a power of attorney for healthcare or a POA for healthcare. You can download one from the internet, and I am sure you can get one from your family doctor. They do need to be witnessed, however, but at least ours didn't have to be notarized. Our medical facilities have been asking us if we've had one for a couple of years now, whenever there has been a need for a medical procedure. For those who may not know, this document tells the doctors and the hospitals and your family how you want to be cared for in the event you are in a life and death condition or you are unable to care for yourself or speak for yourself. As an example, do you want to be resuscitated? This may seem like a no-brainer to most of us. However, I would strongly encourage everyone, and again, this is my opinion, but I would strongly encourage everyone to talk to their doctor about what it really means to be resuscitated, especially as we age. Along with this is the factor of the consequences of not being resuscitated in an adequate amount of time, and what exactly that is and what it means. Do you want to be put on life support, and to what extent? This is also a very touchy subject, and you need to know the consequences of the various stages of life support. Are you an organ donor? Did you know that organ donations can save up to 8 lives? Please check out your state's organ donation registry. I don't think there is a national registry as of yet, but I do know that each state has a registry and they do check with each other. And who are you giving authority to make decisions on your behalf? This should also be an important conversation, and in my opinion, needs to go to the person who is most able to carry out your wishes. Having more than one person know and even have a copy of your living will helps the primary person with these very difficult decisions. We all have moments in our lives that have profound impacts on us, and of course, I am no exception. My aunt and my sister are both nurses, and believe me, I hold them and their positions in high regard. When I was young, my aunt worked at a facility called Southern Colony. This was a facility for the care and the rehabilitation of people who have had head injuries or who sustained brain damage from being deprived of oxygen for too long. I heard many stories of how many of these people would never be leaving the facility because they are in various stages of vegetation. They will forever need medical intervention just to stay alive. Later, my uncle, who was married to this aunt, was diagnosed with colon cancer. Unfortunately, 26 years ago, the focus on preventing and diagnosing colon cancer was not developed, and his cancer was too advanced to survive. At one point, my aunt had stated, "There are worse things than death." This ended up being very profound to me, and one of the first things that changed my perspective on death. Little did I know my perspective of death was going to be altered yet again in a few months with the loss of my infant son from SIDS at 3 months old. I am extremely thankful, however, that because of my aunt and then because of my sister also becoming a nurse, I am able to speak freely about this and my entire family is very open about end-of-life decisions. This ended up becoming very important on August 1st of 2021, when a very quick chain of events led to the death of my dad. Unfortunately, many in my husband's family didn't have the same perspective. My father-in-law especially did not want to discuss this topic. He stated weeks before passing that he planned to live forever, and even on his deathbed, he said this wasn't it. Living in denial of our own mortality and the consequences of our actions pertaining to it doesn't serve us or anyone around us. We spent the last 4 years of my father-in-law's life trying to discuss these issues with him as he was repeatedly hospitalized, rehabilitated, and sent home, only to repeat the process until he didn't come home again. Although I do have a sister-in-law who is a therapist and who was integral in my father-in-law's health, he by no means made it easy. I'm not trying to talk ill of him. However, some of his actions hindered him in many ways, but they also hindered all of us. Unfortunately, as we age, we end up needing to rely on others to help us manage our health and other aspects of our lives. The more stubborn and unwilling to communicate, the more difficult it is for family and medical personnel to help you with your care. Trust me, I know it isn't easy sometimes to talk about things we are afraid of, and no one likes to face their own mortality. We all feel vulnerable and insecure and don't like to face the unknown. It isn't comforting, at least not at first, but you might be surprised that once you start discussing some of these things, you might have a sense of peace. It is just a fact that when everyone involved is on the same page, there will be far less chaos, hurt or angry feelings, and a sense of understanding when there is clear communication. I'll give you another example. My parents are sort of snowbirds. They slowly increase their time in Florida versus Wisconsin. So in the winter of 2019, as things were starting to develop with my father-in-law, my sister and I decided to go visit our parents in Florida. Because of the amount of time my parents are now spending in Florida, I broached the subject of what were my parents' expectations of my sister and I in the event something were to happen to one or both of them while living in Florida. Thankfully, my parents have some self-awareness, and they have been paying attention to a lot of things with my father-in-law, with their friends, and their struggles with their parents and their children. They also have both dealt with the medical issues and subsequent passing of their parents, so my question wasn't off-putting or considered a taboo to them. Thankfully, this was an open discussion, and my sister and I know what their expectations of us were, as well as what their initial plans are as far as living after one or the other would pass. So now, whether my sister or I agree or not with some or all of their decisions is no longer a factor, at least in our minds, if or when these events happen. I am sure some of you are saying, why would I say if we agree or not? Well, it's because it is human nature to have opinions on how things should and could be done. This is even more so when we don't know the position of the person involved. It is human nature to want what we believe is best for the people we love. However, when you put your cards on the table and let those around you know what you want and where you stand on your end-of-life decisions, you remove some of the inevitable conflict. And little did we know that this conversation was going to be more relevant than we realized. And we are so thankful that the events that led to my dad's passing didn't occur while they were in Florida. However, because of this conversation, neither my sister nor I were surprised at decisions my mom made. And not only that, but we were both in the mental space to be able to be supportive and understanding of her decisions. I can tell you firsthand, it is so refreshing that my sister and I can have open conversations with my mom without feeling like we're walking on eggshells. In fact, my mom herself has initiated some of these conversations, and because of our open dialogue, she knows that we have her back. We have even discussed how to handle future events we could possibly run into with her. I cannot express how much relief this brings to my family. I will forever be grateful for my parents' willingness to discuss this topic, especially now that my dad has passed away just under 3 years after having that conversation. Unfortunately, this was not so much the case with my father-in-law. It took a lot of coaxing to get him to address these issues. Although he finally relented and filled out a POA, he was stubborn until the end. So I would urge all of you to take some time and think about how you would want to be taken care of in the event something happens to you. I would urge you to download a living will or power of attorney for health care. I would also encourage you to break the taboo of not talking about it. I would encourage you to discuss it with not just your family, but also trusted friends, especially if you have decisions you do not think those closest to you will carry out. Because if we live in fear of death, we don't actually live. And if we stay silent about our decisions, we leave strife behind for others to deal with, and it may be more detrimental to you in the end. In my opinion, the best sentimental gift you can leave your family with is peace. Peace that they all knew exactly what you wanted and they were able to fulfill it as best as they could. So until next time, I'm going to steal a quote from Facebook. The author is unknown, but I hope something unexpectedly good happens to you this week. So thank you for watching, and please consider subscribing, liking, sharing, and commenting.